This episode is an ESL listening practice for intermediate learners. You will hear a natural conversation with clear pronunciation and everyday English. No tests, no pressure, just listening. Let's start.
Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we are diving into one of the most compelling narratives we've ever come across when it comes to personal transformation.
It really is something special.
It's a true case study, and it's all distilled from just a single personal reflection. And it shows how one single consistent decision, this commitment to learning a second language, wasn't just, an item on a resume.
Not at all.
It was a total re-architecture of a person's life. And we're not talking about a small career bump here.
No.
We're talking about a blueprint for a life that was completely redefined, geographically, professionally, and even romantically.
It's an extraordinary document. The source we're really digging into today is an excerpt from a reflection piece.
Yeah. It's
titled ESL Project.docs, and specifically is a section she labeled How Knowledge of English Completely Changed My Life.
Right.
And this is the whole arc of a 40-year-old woman from Eastern Europe. What makes it so powerful, I think, is the precision. She tracks her journey so clearly. She goes from being this almost indifferent language student with what she herself calls poor skills to becoming, a global citizen.
A global citizen, an entrepreneur. It's a huge leap.
The successful entrepreneur in a massive international hub, and a person whose entire destiny just completely pivoted on her ability to speak English.
So our mission today is really to cut through the sentimentality, get past the inspirational story and extract the hard, actionable insights from her experience.
Mechanics.
The mechanics, exactly. We want to understand how that grind, that dedication to learning, often without a clear, defined goal in sight, how did that become the one indispensable thing she needed for this massive success?
Right.
We're basically looking at a real-world demonstration of the idea that preparedness doesn't just meet opportunity.
No, it creates the space for it.
Preparedness actually creates the space for luck to even operate.
Precisely. And we're going to be focusing intently on that transformative power she details. It's so important that we analyze not just what she learned, the English itself, but how that one skill acted as a multiplier.
A multiplier, that's a good word for it.
Yeah, it unexpectedly opened doors in a really high-stakes career. It allowed her to relocate to one of the world's most dynamic cities, and maybe most profoundly, it introduced her to her life partner.
It really is a powerful reminder that the most consequential skills we pick up are often the ones where, we just can't foresee the ultimate benefits when we first start putting in the time.
You just have to trust the process.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. Section 1, the seed of necessity. This covers her from about age 24 to 27, her early to mid-20s. And we have to set the scene with the baseline, her formal education back in her home country in Eastern Europe. She tells us she studied English formally, both in school and then later at university.
And this context is absolutely foundational because, it establishes a starting point that millions of people around the world can relate to.
For sure.
In so many educational systems, and I think particularly in Eastern Europe during that time, language instruction was heavily weighted toward passive comprehension.
Right. Reading, grammar tables.
Exactly. Reading complex texts, memorizing endless grammar tables, passing written exams, practical, spontaneous conversation.
Yeah.
That was often just an afterthought.
If it was addressed at all.
And that perfectly explains her crucial realization. She had the diploma, she had the formal qualifications on paper.
But she says that after graduating, she made this stark, really sobering discovery. Her actual usable English skills were, in her words, quite poor.
And that gap, that chasm really between academic knowledge and practical ability is what trips up so many people. It's a classic trap.
Yeah.
You can, identify the past perfect continuous tense flawlessly on a multiple choice test. But if you can't understand a simple question from a tourist or order a meal,
then the skill is useless. It's inert.
It is. It's professionally inert. And what's just as interesting is her initial reaction to this. She admits she didn't pay much attention to it at the time.
I think that's completely relatable. That initial apathy is so standard, especially when you're young, you're living in your home country. English isn't required for your daily life.
It's an optional extra.
It is. It feels like a hobby, not a necessity. It points to a deep, I think, inherent human tendency. We only really internalize the value of a skill when its absence starts to cause immediate pain or loss.
That's it. That passive acceptance was her default setting until it collided, and I mean violently collided, with a concrete high-stakes need.
The real world.
The real world. For her, that collision happened when she was 24, and it provided this immense external pressure that was required to shift her mindset from, oh, I should probably get better at that someday, to, I need to fix this now.
Which brings us right to the moment that changed everything, the catalyst. She describes it as this perfect storm of travel and just acute personal embarrassment. She'd always had this dream of traveling, and her first trip abroad was a vacation to Egypt. She was 24.
And this wasn't just a holiday. It was the pressure cooker moment. It was the test where all her years of academic English just failed catastrophically in a real-world setting.
Yeah, she describes the immediate, painful experience of feeling embarrassed for not being able to communicate even the basics with hotel staff.
The basics, not complex negotiations. The basics.
And I want to just pause on the psychology of that embarrassment for a second.
Please.
Because it is a profoundly effective motivator. It transforms English from a subject she studied in the classroom into an essential human competency that she was lacking.
Right. It's a status drop.
It is. It's not just an inconvenience. It's a loss of dignity, a loss of agency. You're suddenly reduced to pointing and gesturing. You can't express yourself. You can't ask for what you need. And that failure to communicate the basics in a standard tourist situation, I mean, a pretty low stakes environment compared to, say, a business negotiation, that's the pivot point.
That emotional discomfort is the currency of change here. It's what she paid to get motivated. It transforms language acquisition from this abstract chore into a mission to recover her personal agency.
A mission, yeah.
That immediate practical failure created this sudden fierce motivation for serious self-directed study that, 10 plus years of mandatory schooling had completely failed to instill.
Which really makes you question the system, doesn't it?
It raises the essential question we have to ask. Why do we let academic systems define what competency is when real-world application is the only thing that actually matters?
The ultimate arbiter.
It is.
Yeah.
And in her case, that internal motivation, that burning desire to never feel that way again, was finally strong enough to sustain years of consistent daily effort.
So she gets back home, and she's fueled not by, a desire for a new job or a raise, but by this raw need to never feel that powerless again. She decides she has to really focus on learning English. And this wasn't some New Year's resolution. This was the start of a dedicated, highly personalized, and I think importantly, an unscripted study plan.
And what's so fascinating about her methodology here in section 1.3 is its sheer accessibility. It's so modern. She knew that going back to a formal classroom wasn't the answer.
Been there, done that.
Right. It didn't work the first time. So she opted for self-study, and she used this diverse modern toolkit. Various apps, podcasts, and textbooks.
Okay, let's break down that toolkit because this is where, you, the listener, can find some specific insights.
Yeah.
When she says various apps, she was probably tapping into the gamification of learning. Things like Duolingo, Memrise, tools that use spaced repetition systems to drill vocabulary. They make the tedious part less tedious.
For sure. And textbooks provided the structure, the grammar, the foundational rules that her formal education might have taught her, but she never really applied.
But the podcast, I think that's the key to fluency.
I agree completely. The podcasts are the mechanism for immersion when you can't actually be in an English-speaking country. They train your ear for natural speed, for different accents, for slang, for contextual usage.
All the stuff that textbooks just cannot give you.
Right. This mixed digital tools for vocab, books for the rules, and audio for real-world listening, it shows a real self-awareness. She knew she needed a balanced approach that targeted all four skills: reading, writing, speaking, and listening.
And the single most important takeaway, I think, for anyone trying to learn anything, not just a language, is her consistency.
Absolutely.
She practiced almost every day for at least half an hour. That is the profound, almost mundane power of low-intensity, high-consistency effort.
It's not sexy. It doesn't sound like a life hack.
No, it's not about finding a huge 8-hour block on a Saturday to cram. It's about making this skill a non-negotiable part of your daily routine, like brushing your teeth.
That 30 minutes a day is the engine of her entire transformation. I mean, think about it. If you look at the commitment required, it's not overwhelming.
Not at all.
It's the time most of us spend scrolling on our phones or, on our commute. That cumulative effect is exponential, especially with language, where retention requires that constant low-dose exposure. This consistency is what separates her from the millions of people who download an app, use it for 2 weeks, and then give up.
But let's dig into the motivation here. This brings us to a really poignant little anecdote in her reflection. Section 1.4, the question of purpose. She remembers a conversation where her mother just asked her point blank, "Why are you studying English?"
And this is where the story gets so relatable, because her honest admission was simple. She didn't have a clear answer.
No clear answer.
None. Beyond that vague initial dream of traveling more and, avoiding future embarrassment.
That admission is so crucial. Because most of us, we feel this pressure, socially, professionally, to justify learning a skill with a clear return on investment.
A promotion, a degree, a specific dollar amount.
Exactly. But she couldn't offer that. She was investing years of her life into a skill whose ultimate life-altering payoff was completely invisible to her at the time.
This is what we call investing in a Teflon skill. That's a great way to think about it.
Tell me more.
It's a skill you build because intellectually, it adds friction reduction to your future life, even if you don't know exactly what surface it's going to stick to.
I like that. Friction reduction.
It's dedication without a clear, tangible application in sight. And honestly, that must have been so challenging to sustain. It takes a very specific kind of discipline to keep showing up for a task when the payoff might be 5 years away, or it might never arrive at all.
It is terrifying because you are committing your most valuable resource, your time, something with no guaranteed outcome. But that long-term, non-specific commitment is exactly what laid the groundwork. Had she waited until the job posting showed up when she was 27 to start studying, it would have been too late. Impossible to get to the level she needed.
That dedication, driven initially by that vague desire for mobility and rooted in overcoming past shame, it just provided the foundation. It's a powerful validation of this strategy of continuous self-improvement. It proves that skill accumulation is the highest form of future-proofing your life.
You stack the skills.
You stack skills, and eventually the right opportunity comes along, and you are ready to walk through that door because you did the work when it was inconvenient and when it seemed completely unnecessary.
Okay, so let's pivot hard into section 2, because this is where that abstract dedication suddenly yields this massive, practical, life-altering outcome.
The payoff.
The payoff. We're moving from the quiet consistency of her study desk to the high-stakes environment of a global career launch. And this happens when she's 27.
3 years of serious, consistent study. So we do the math again. That's roughly 550 hours of dedicated effort at this point.
Right.
And then suddenly, the universe provides the exact opportunity that validates every single one of those 30-minute sessions she ever put in.
Here's where it gets really interesting. She was 27, and she finds this unexpected interview. The opportunity was to become a flight attendant for a major international airline based in the United Arab Emirates. And I want to highlight the logistics of this because it's important. The company actually traveled to her home country in Eastern Europe to conduct the interviews.
And that detail, it just speaks volumes about the globalization of the high-service labor market. It means international capital was actively seeking talent across borders.
They were coming to her.
They were coming to her. And the mechanism for accessing that talent was explicitly defined by one single skill: English. She didn't have to save up money and bear the financial risk of flying to the UAE for an interview. The opportunity came directly to her doorstep.
But her ability to seize that locally presented opportunity and turn it into international mobility, that hinged entirely on her language skills.
100%.
Yeah.
And she's incredibly clear about the direct, crucial role English played. She notes that the hiring process wasn't just about English.
Right. So she was qualified in other ways, professional demeanor, good with people, all of that.
Of course, she had the temperament for a high-pressure, customer-facing role. But then comes the thesis-defining acknowledgement, the absolute central point of her entire reflection.
What does she say?
She says, "I know that without it, I wouldn't have made it."
Wow.
That is a stark, non-negotiable statement. English acted as the necessary condition, the essential gatekeeper. It's the difference between being qualified on paper and being eligible in reality.
So you could be the best candidate in the world, perfect for the job.
The best in the world, perfectly suited. But if you cannot communicate safety protocols or service instructions or handle requests from international passengers in the lingua franca of aviation,
the door stays shut.
The door is welded shut. It's the ultimate illustration of that skill multiplier effect we talked about.
Yeah.
Her existing talents, her poise, her professionalism, they were being multiplied by 0 when she only spoke her native language.
And her English proficiency allowed that factor to become a 1 or maybe even a 10.
Exactly. It suddenly opened up access to the entire global economy. That abstract study suddenly yielded this massive practical outcome, a high-demand, high-mobility career, thousands of miles from her home, a country which, let's be frank, probably offered far fewer high-paying international opportunities at that time.
That economic and geographic liberation is the core payoff, isn't it?
It is. I mean, just compare her potential life trajectory in her home country, likely bound by local salaries and limited career paths, versus the instant global passport that this job provided. It's a quantum leap from a localized economy to one of the world's premier international hubs.
And this success, it immediately forces this drastic shift in her environment, immediate relocation and full immersion. She gets the job and she flies directly to Dubai. And I was really struck by her description of the transition. You know, you often hear about profound culture shock.
Of course.
But she says that from the very first day, she felt like it was my second home. She loved everything about it.
That immediate feeling of belonging, it speaks to the power of finding an environment, professionally and culturally, that just perfectly aligns with your previously unarticulated dreams.
Yeah.
Dubai being this cosmopolitan hub defined by international travel, commerce, diverse populations. It was the perfect ecosystem for someone who had developed this global curiosity and, crucially, had the skills to navigate it.
So that initial vague dream of traveling she had
Was fulfilled exponentially. It wasn't just a vacation anymore. It was her life.
professionally, this new life began right away with some serious requirements. She had to complete a 1-month training course at a college.
And that little detail gives us a fascinating glimpse into the rigor of her new professional life. She wasn't eased into it. There was no grace period.
No, she was thrown into the deep end. High stakes, professional integration into an English-speaking system from day one.
Exactly. This wasn't just conversational English anymore. This was a month of intensive training where English was the operational language for everything. Technical skills, emergency procedures, safety protocols, company policy.
Wow.
The level of precision required means that the baseline fluency she achieved through her 30-minute daily practice was certainly being rigorously tested and expanded in a very high-consequence environment.
And you have to assume that this rapid immersion just acted as a massive accelerant to her existing skills.
Oh, for sure. Moving to the UAE, where English is the lingua franca of business, tourism, everything, it means every single interaction reinforces the language.
From her training to buying groceries.
From professional communication to daily life logistics, yes. Her proficiency, which was just good enough to get the job, would have skyrocketed in that first month alone. It transformed her textbook knowledge into real functional mastery.
So you have this perfect synergy.
It's an undeniable synergy. She built the foundation with those 30 minutes a day. The foundation allowed her entry into an environment, Dubai, the airline, that immediately demanded and exponentially reinforced that very skill. It created this high-velocity feedback loop for success and assimilation.
It took her language skills from sufficient to indispensable.
Absolutely. And that set her up not just for that specific job, but for everything that was about to follow.
And the narrative takes this remarkable turn in Section 3. This is where you see the true, ultimate depth of this transformation.
And it really gets personal here.
It does. The language moves beyond being a professional tool and becomes the literal foundation for her personal life. It illustrates a consequence that's so much bigger than just career advancement.
And this is often the most surprising part of the story for people. How deeply a language investment can impact your destiny. And this personal achievement, it begins immediately after the professional one. Yep. The setting is key. It's right after her training course graduation celebration. She's there with her classmates. And the euphoria of achieving this huge professional goal immediately gives way to the beginning of her personal life goal.
And it's right there at that celebration that she meets her future husband.
Just like that.
The source gives us this crucial detail. He is French. She is from Eastern Europe. So you have two individuals from completely different geographic, cultural, linguistic backgrounds.
Leaving in a third country, Dubai, celebrating a new international job. It's the quintessential global story.
And the fact that he's French is pivotal to our analysis of English as this global social lubricant.
It is, because when we talk about language-enabling relationships, we usually imagine one person learning the native language of the other.
Right, the American moves to France and learns French.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But here, English is serving as the essential communication link between two non-native speakers. It's the neutral territory, the common ground that they both share.
And she states it explicitly, which is fantastic for our analysis. She says, English brought us together.
No ambiguity there.
None. And she immediately gives us the compelling counterfactual that highlights why it was so necessary. She says, if neither of us spoke English, we wouldn't have been able to connect.
Think about that for a second. The very existence of their 14-year relationship, their shared life, their family, it all pivots entirely on a mutual second language.
This detail just elevates English to the status of an indispensable international social lubricant. It bridges these divides, geographical, linguistic, that would otherwise be completely insurmountable.
I mean, think of the alternative. The complexity of an Eastern European woman and a French man meeting in their 20s while building new careers, trying to develop fluency in each other's native tongue fast enough to form a lasting, intimate bond.
It's prohibitively high. The odds are stacked against you.
They are. English provided the accessible functional default that allowed their personalities, their humor, their shared dreams to shine through immediately.
I do wonder, though, and this is where we have to push the analysis a little,
Go on.
was there any implicit difficulty in using a second language as the foundation for a deeply emotional long-term relationship? English got them together, sure, but doesn't relying on a non-native tongue ever feel restrictive? When you're discussing nuanced emotions or complex high-stakes decisions like getting married or starting a family.
That's a critical point. And while the source doesn't detail any friction, the psychological reality is that it can often be taxing.
Right.
However, there's a subtle advantage to this dynamic in cross-cultural couples. English is a mutually chosen language. Neither partner holds a linguistic power advantage over the other.
That's interesting.
It's a big deal. You avoid the situation where one partner is speaking their mother tongue with all its slang and cultural context and speed, and the other is constantly struggling just to keep up. In this scenario, they're both communicating on the same level of acquired fluency.
It creates a surprising sense of mutual effort.
And equality. It's a level playing field.
That makes a lot of sense. It neutralizes the linguistic power dynamic. It transforms the definition of fluency away from, perfect grammar and toward just having a shared, accessible platform that lets two people share their lives regardless of their mother tongues. That 30 minutes of study a day, it didn't just let her get a job thousands of miles away. It enabled her to find love and build a family.
And we can track the long-term foundational trajectory of this connection. This wasn't just some temporary, expat fling.
Not at all.
They have been together for almost 14 years, which means their life partnership began almost immediately after she arrived in Dubai. And crucially, she's been living in Dubai for nearly that same amount of time.
This segment just dramatically underscores how foundational these changes were. The language skill didn't just give her a temporary career path.
No.
It determined her spouse, her long-term geographic home, and her personal stability for the better part of 2 decades. Her entire adult life from age 27 onward is rooted in the skills she chose to build back when she was 24, driven by that single moment of embarrassment in an Egyptian hotel.
It's a powerful and, I think, often overlooked point. Language learning is not just an intellectual exercise. It is fundamentally an investment in your personal destiny, in who you will meet, where you will live, and who will become your family.
For her, without English, this entire 14-year reality, the French husband, the Dubai home, the international life,
It just evaporates into a what if, a completely different life path.
So let's fast forward now a decade and a half to section 4. This is the 40-year view, family, business, and reflection. We're catching up with her present-day reality.
Yeah.
And it demonstrates the sustained high-level utility of her language skills well into her prime career and personal life.
At age 40, we see a very common and very successful evolution for a highly skilled, mobile professional. She's no longer working as a flight attendant. She's transitioned out of that demanding role.
Right.
Her new focus is her family and, crucially, managing her own business.
This transition from employee to entrepreneur is the highest level of agency she's achieved so far, and it's where that language skill really reaches its maximum utility.
And she says it explicitly. Her current business activities are all conducted in English.
We need to unpack what that really means, all conducted in English in a place like Dubai.
Yes. It's not just, chatting with customers. She is operating within the international marketplace. She's using English for high-stakes, specialized purposes.
Like what?
Well, establishing legal structures for her company, negotiating contracts with vendors who could be from China, Europe, the US, anywhere, managing marketing campaigns, targeting a global expat community, and handling all of her banking and regulatory interactions.
So her English proficiency had to evolve again. It had to go beyond social and service industry fluency.
Way beyond. It had to become professional, technical, and even legal fluency.
The ability to transition from an employee role, however prestigious, to an independent entrepreneur in a hyper-competitive global hub like Dubai, and to run the entire operation in a second language. That's the pinnacle of professional versatility.
It really is.
It proves that English proficiency doesn't just enable you to fit into existing global structures, it enables you to create new, wealth-generating structures for yourself and for your family.
That's a great way to put it. She was able to pivot her career from a very specific service role to broad business ownership because that underlying communication skill was completely adaptable and robust.
And the success in entrepreneurship, it sets up this critical reflective moment in her narrative. She starts analyzing the profound what if. She openly contrasts her current life with the potential alternative path. She says, if I hadn't learned the language, my life would have been completely different.
And the gravity of that counterfactual is immense, especially when you consider the economic reality of where she came from. She even offers a specific alternative. She might still be living in my home country, and who knows how things would have turned out.
That phrase, who knows? The lack of clarity there. It highlights how much uncertainty and localized limitations she traded for a defined, successful, globally mobile life.
With a highly predictable financial trajectory, I might add. It speaks directly to the concept of optionality.
Explain that.
By mastering English, she maximized her agency, her choices exponentially. She wasn't limited to the economic opportunities or the social sphere of her birth country anymore. She gained the ability to choose her geographic location, her life partner, her career path, even her tax jurisdiction, if she wanted.
And that ability to choose your own sphere of influence is maybe the greatest freedom that globalization affords.
And her narrative basically frames English as the access card to that freedom.
So her acquired skill became this form of non-perishable capital, social and economic capital.
That's it. If you don't have that specific global skill, your choices are inherently constrained by your geographic boundaries. Her story makes this compelling argument that proficiency in a global language is maybe the single most significant factor in maximizing personal agency in the 21st century.
The ultimate future-proofing mechanism.
It is. She then shifts to summarizing the accumulated benefits, the broad experiential gains she attributes directly to learning the language. She says, thanks to English, she's experienced so much, she's traveled to many countries, and she's tried new things.
This list, it expands the definition of benefit beyond just the transactional, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's beyond just the job or the business revenue. It moves into experiential wealth, personal growth, cognitive expansion. She didn't just move to Dubai, she gained cultural depth, self-confidence, and maybe most importantly, the ability to communicate with people from all backgrounds.
And that ability to connect across cultures is the crowning achievement. In a city like Dubai, where over 80% of the population are expats from virtually every nation on Earth.
Right.
English isn't just a convenient replacement for Arabic. It's the mandatory key that unlocks diverse human connection. She's able to engage with, understand, and build meaningful relationships with people regardless of their mother tongue. And that broadens her worldview far beyond what was ever possible from her starting point in Eastern Europe.
And this profound ability to connect, it leads her to her final wisdom, her final philosophical thought in the document. Her direct advice to you, the listener, is universal and concise. And it's so deeply informed by her own history. She says, my advice to everyone is to learn a language. You never know when it will come in handy.
That you never know sentiment loops us right back to the beginning, doesn't it?
It does.
Back to her mother's skeptical question all those years ago. Why are you studying English? She didn't know the answer then, but she did the work anyway. It's the ultimate vindication of investing in latent utility.
Building a foundation for an opportunity that doesn't even exist yet.
Exactly. And she concludes with a quote, a powerful philosophical summation of the value of this whole endeavor. As the saying goes, the more languages you know, the more you are truly human. If we connect this to the bigger picture, that quote elevates the entire discussion beyond just utility. It argues that learning a language isn't just about acquiring a tool for commerce. It's about cognitive and cultural expansion.
Right.
Every language provides a new framework for understanding the world, new cultural contexts, new ways of relating to other people. By gaining English, she didn't just gain a job. She acquired a global identity, and by your own definition, she actually increased her humanity.
This deep dive shows that language learning is maybe the highest form of personal investment you can make in securing the optimal version of your own future self. So what does this all mean? We've traced a life arc that pivots entirely on a consistent small habit, that 30-minute daily commitment, which over time yielded results that no one, least of all her, could have predicted. Let's just quickly summarize the crucial arc for you, the learner.
I think the structure of her success is built on 3 pillars. First, the value of focused, consistent effort. That 30 minutes daily for 5 years, which built the indispensable foundation.
Right, the grind.
The grind. Second, the unexpected practical reward. That prestigious flight attendant career that served as her professional launch pad and facilitated her geographic move.
The opportunity.
The opportunity. And third, the ultimate foundational payoff. A French husband, a permanent home in Dubai, and the financial independence that comes from running her own English-based business.
It really is the ultimate story where preparedness meets luck. But the definition of luck here is so critical, isn't it?
It is.
The luck was simply the job interview showing up in her country. The preparedness was the 5 years of study that allowed her to walk in and pass that interview. She was ready when the signal came.
If she had been relying on her quite poor university English, that entire timeline would have been completely unattainable. She created the conditions for luck to thrive.
Which leads us directly to our final provocative thought for you to consider, based on everything we've just analyzed. The source material implies that the real lasting value of her fluency wasn't just access to travel or even an income stream. It was access to the fundamental foundational relationships, a partner, a family, a professional network that determined her geographic location, her emotional well-being, and her financial independence for nearly 2 decades. The skill determined the spouse, and the spouse determined the destiny.
That reframes skill acquisition entirely, doesn't it? It moves the conversation from, job training.
To fate manipulation.
To fate manipulation. It does. So the question we want to leave you with is this. In your own life, how often do we discount a skill or knowledge or a habit, that consistent low-level effort, because its immediate utility isn't clear?
Because there's no obvious immediate payoff.
Exactly. What latent potential are you currently building? Or maybe more importantly, what potential are you ignoring right now because the outcome seems vague or 5 years down the road? Because this woman's story proves that the small, vague investment you make today can be the foundation of literally everything you become tomorrow.